In the Russian Empire between 1450 and 1750, the Tsar, Peter the Great, was focused on westernizing the empire. He educated all the citizens on Western ways of thought and created reform movements in Russia. Technologically, Peter the Great brought many new technologies to Russia. For example, new military reforms. He strengthened the military and brought the technology of guns and gunpowder, as well as other military technologies. There was also new infrastructure in Russia, such as roads, canals, and improved ships. After Peter the Great died, Catherine the Great continued his legacy, and intellectually and technologically improved Russia.
In the 1450s to the 1750s, Russian expansion led to the lowering of literacy of the priesthood. Even under Mongol rule, Russia remained Christian because of religious tolerance. Russian landlords adopted Western fashion and social habits. Tsars realized Russia's cultural subordination to the Mongols had them at a disadvantage. Renaissance styles of art were modified by Russian architects, and Italian architects designed buildings and palaces. The royal court spoke French and watched ballet performances. There were new advanced schools for the elite, and a culture gap was developing between the upper class and the commoners. There was a large interest of changing culture by imitating the West, mainly because of Peter the Great. He was eager to cut off the Russian elite from their former traditions, and by doing so, cut off their beards as well. Catherine the Great resented Western ideas mainly because of the French Revolution, so she began to make changes of her own. There was a large social unrest among the peasants and serfs because of oppressive overlords.
The Russian Empire was one of the largest and most significant kingdoms during 1450 through 1750, being involved in countless wars, treaties, conquerings, diseases, invasions, trades, and everything in between. The empire made a huge impact in all of world history, having numerous significant events within this 300-year-long period. Russia entered this period still under Mongol control, being isolated from many of the Western European advancements at this time. Once they broke free of Mongol control between 1450 through 1480, they began a rapid growth period of territorial expansion and government reconstruction. Ironically, the Mongols set the Russian Empire up for when they broke out in independence. The Russians were well prepared. The Mongols set up Russia as a tributary feudal state, and the tribute payments were to be collected in Moscow, making it the capital of the empire. The Orthodox Church followed this capital and made Moscow the center of the church, so when the Russian Empire became independent, they had already had a small systems of relations set up. There were some disadvantages to the break free of the Mongols, such as a very weak government the first few years as an independent state. This is when Ivan III stepped in, creating a foundation for the Russian Empire that his ancestors would later build upon. Unlike Ivan III, Ivan IV was not such an affable man. He was called Ivan the Terrible, for he was the cruelest leader that Russia had ever had. After a childhood of abuse and cruelty, he destroyed his rivals and claimed the throne of Russia from 1530 to 1584. He was an extremely powerful dictator, and his way was the only way. After Ivan IV, the magnificent Peter the Great came into Tsardom in 1672. He was primarily focused on modernizing the empire, and he improved the entire kingdom significantly. He developed things such as military reform, infrastructure, expansion of territory, reformation of the bureaucracy, and relocation of the capital. He made up for the lost Western European advancements because of the Mongols and got Russia back into the game. Because of Peter the Great, Russia had a lot of social significance within Europe in this time period.
Entering this time period at around 1450, the Russian Empire was still under control of the Mongols, a situation that isolated Russia from many of the advancements made in Western Europe during this time. When Russians did break free from Mongol domination, they began a period of territorial expansion and government reform. The first Tsars expanded power and the growing Russian empires into Serbia and Central Asia. Ivan III and his son, Ivan IV, were the first significant leaders in this process. In 1470, Ivan launched a war against the Novgorod princedom, which he conquered and annexed in 1478, thereby acquiring all of northern Russia from Finland to the Ural Mountains. He further increased his domain either by conquest, purchases of surrounding sovereign territories, or by using his diplomatic talent in exacting alliances from weaker princes. As a result of 2 wars with Lithuania, he forced Alexander I, the ruler of the country at that time period, and the king of Poland to give up a score of towns. Ivan III became the gatherer of Russian land and tripled the territory of his state. Under their rule, Russia began acquiring more territory than ever before. However, no Tsar was more powerful in revolutionizing and expanding the Russian Empire than Peter the Great. He led a powerful army that defeated Swedish military and allowed him to extend Russia's borders to the Baltic Sea. Later in 1722, Peter attacked Persia and was able to gain more territory near the shores of the Caspian Sea as well. This gave Russia access to new ports and maritime trade. Along this new captured land, Peter the Great moved his court from Moscow to St. Petersburg and was able to build a powerful navy.
Between 1450 and 1750, Russia's economy went through a significant amount of change as well as an immense increase in territory. Towards the early 14th century, Russia was ruled by an indigenous tribe called the Slavs and continued to rule for 2 centuries until the Mongols came and invaded. During their rule, the Mongols began to expand towards Eastern Europe, creating more land for Tartars. Tartars were Turkish people that were ruled by an elite class of Mongols that spoke and practiced the Turkish language and beliefs respectively. The Tartars put extremely heavy taxes on the Russians, which ultimately damaged the economy permanently. Under Mongol rule, Russia lost half of its population, many cities were destroyed, and the city began to show how to govern through terror tactics. The Mongols ruled Russia for 2 more centuries until Ivan III, also known as Prince of Moscow, took the title of Tsar and freed the country from Mongol control. Ivan III is also referred to as Ivan the Great, while his son is referred to as Ivan the Terrible, because it seemed as though right as Ivan III had began to dig Russia out of a hole the Mongols had put them in, Ivan the Terrible decided to dig that hole deeper again. Eventually, because Russia had fallen behind compared to Western Europe's advancements, they created Westernization in order to keep up with their surrounding neighbors. The Russian Empire faced many border conflicts with the Chinese and other nomadic people of Central Asia, which is why Peter the Great sought help from Europe to help him strengthen his empire. Earlier, Russia had been ruled by the Byzantines, but eventually their power faded, and so did the power of the Tsar. Before Peter the Great, Russia was unable to trade with other countries because of their inability to access water ports. Not being able to access water ports resulted in Russia not being able to participate in the maritime revolution. When Peter the Great ruled Russia, there was no navy, a limited army, very few roads, and few water ports, yet he still hoped to westernize his empire. Peter returned to Russia convinced that the empire could only become powerful by imitating Western success, and he instituted a number of reforms that revolutionized it and built the army by offering better pay and also drafted peasants for service as professional soldiers. He also created a navy by importing Western engineers and craftsmen to build ships and shipyards, and other experts to teach naval tactics to recruits.
The religion in Russia was mainly Christian. The Russian Orthodox Church was the central religious authority. The Tsars of Russia were granted divine right by the Russian Orthodox Church.